Hey there, welcome back to Turtle Maths. Today I am going to discuss solving quadratic inequalities. Please feel free to watch it at 1.5x if you just want to revise quickly. There are plenty of examples followed by some exam questions as well, so grab your pens and notebooks, it's time to crunch some numbers. I am assuming that you are already aware of how to solve the linear inequalities, and that's why you are here to learn how to solve quadratic inequalities. Now, in order to do quadratic inequalities, we should be well versed of solving quadratic either using factorization method or using the quadratic formula. So, in order to solve this inequality where I have got x square plus 4x plus 3 greater than 0, we are going to first solve this. We are going to imagine how this quadratic will look like, or what are the solution of this quadratic when it is equal to 0. And then we will plot its graph, and using graph we will be able to decide the solution of this inequality. I am going to use factorization method. If you don't know what factorization method is, please look here. I will post the link here and you can watch it. Now this video is made in the series of quadratic functions and equations, so do watch the other videos, they will come very handy. So without wasting any time, let's factorize it. So a times c is 3, and we can rewrite this thing 4x as 3x plus 3 equal to 0. Now we will group them into, so take x out, so I will have x plus 3, and from here I can take 1 common. 1 is the HCF of x and 3. There is no other number, so you can take 1, and you have got x plus 3 here, x plus 3 here, so we'll group these two together. So I will have x plus 1 times x plus 3 is equal to 0. It means if the product of two numbers is equal to 0, it means one of them is 0. So either x plus 1 is equal to 0 or x plus 3 is equal to 0. That means x is equal to minus 1 or x is equal to negative 3. Now look at this quadratic. This quadratic, the coefficient of x square is positive. If nothing is written, it means 1 is there and it is positive. Now, if it is positive, it means that we will have a concave up parabola. A concave up parabola. And then, if you see the x-intercepts, which means the solution of this quadratic is x-intercepts, if I plot them there on this quadratic, I will have negative 3 and negative 1. And we are asked to get that part which is greater than 0. So this is my x-axis, and greater than 0 is going to be this region and this region. So what does that mean? It means that I can take x less than negative 3 or x greater than negative 1. You can also write it in the set builder form. So x is an element of from negative infinity to negative 3 union negative 1 to positive infinity. You can see this continues, and that's the solution of this quadratic. Now let's start example 2. Example 2, solve negative x square plus 7x minus 12 is less than or equal to 0. So we have to find the value of x for which this quadratic would be less than or equal to 0. So I'm going to give you some time. You can pause this video and try attempting it by yourself. Alright, so I assume you have attempted this question. Let's see how to do this correctly. So step number 1, I will equate it to 0 and try to solve this quadratic. So negative x square plus 7x minus 12 is equal to 0. Here I can again use factorization method because I need negative 12 and negative 1, that's 12, and I have got 7x here, so I can write it as 4x plus 3x minus 12 is equal to 0. don't miss the video where I have explained using the factorization method. I have posted the link here. Now I can take x out and create a parenthesis. So negative x out, so I will have x followed by negative 4, and from here I can take 3 because 3 can divide both of these two terms. So I will have x and then minus 4 equal to 0. I got x minus 4, x minus 4. It means I can rewrite it as x minus 4 times negative x plus 3 is equal to 0. The product of two number is equal to 0. It means one of them is 0. So either x minus 4 is equal to 0 or negative x plus 3 is equal to 0. That will give us x is equal to 4, or it or negative x is equal to negative 3. It implies that x is equal to 3. So we have got our solution. Now pay attention here. The coefficient of x square is negative. Negative coefficient of x square means we will have a concave down parabola, or the students like to call it a sad face. And you can see the x-intercepts that we have got are 3 and 4. So let's plot it. So this quadratic parabola is going to intersect the x-axis at 3 and 4. So it is 4 comma 0 and 3 comma 0. And we are asked to find the region where it is less than or equal to 0. So less than or equal to 0 means we have to take the region where it is below the x-axis. So this is going to be the region which is, I have to take x should be less than or equal to 3, or x should be greater than or equal to 4. That's my answer. You can also write it as x is an element of negative infinity comma 3, and I will use the big bracket because I want to include the 3, union 4 comma positive infinity. That's my answer. So let's start example 3. Now, questions like these can be done in two ways, and I will teach you both the ways because this is a question which may come handy, or this method will may come handy when you are solving not just quadratic inequalities, but some kind of inequality that turns up into quadratic expression and then you have to solve it. So you should be able to apply some method and get an answer. So here I have got x square is less than or equal to 100. As I have said earlier, let's write it as x square is equal to 100. I can reduce it again as x square minus 100 is equal to 0. This is difference of squares. So difference of a square means that if you have a square minus b square, you can factorize it at a plus b times a minus b. And hence you can get x minus 10 times x plus 10 is equal to 0. Now the product of two number is equal to 0. It means one of them is 0. And my solution would be x is equal to 10 or x is equal to negative 10. Now you can see this quadratic, my coefficient of x square is positive. So it's concave up, happy face. And the x-intercepts are minus 10 and positive 10. And we have to take a region where it is, if I rewrite this inequality, I can write it as x square minus 100 is less than or equal to 0. So I have to take a region which is below the x-axis. So I have got my x-axis and I have to write this is my x-axis and I have to take below the x-axis. Below the x-axis means this region, and it has to be less than or equal to. So my x should be equal to, my x has to be greater than negative 10, greater than or equal to negative 10, or it should be less than or equal to 10. So this is going to be my answer. These are the values from minus 10 to positive 10. I can also write it as x is an element of, I want to include negative 10 to positive 10, and I want to include the endpoint, so I will make the big bracket. Let's see how I can do this question using the absolute value function. Now, I'm going to do the same question using absolute value function. I have got x square is less than or equal to 100. Imagine if it was just x square equal to 100. And then we could have just taken the square root and we of both sides, and we can say that x is equal to plus minus square root of 100. But since we have an inequality, we want to be sure that the other side is positive. When I'm taking the square root, I want to ensure that the other side is positive. So what I will do, I will start with taking the square root. And when I will take the square root, when I will write root under x square is less than root under 100. And in the next step, the square root of x square is modulus of x or absolute value of x, and this absolute value has to be less than 10. Now doing this, I have ensured that this quantity is positive and I can take care of both the positive and negative 100 using this inequality. I have told you before that the absolute value of x means distance from the origin on the x-axis. So if you draw the x-axis and if you draw your origin, there are 2 points for which the distance gonna be 10 units. The positive 10 and the another point is going to be negative 10. And I want this distance to be less than or equal to 10. So it means I want it to be less than 10 and I want it to be less than 10 as well. This distance has to be here. So that means my x should be between negative 10 to positive 10, or x is an element of negative 10 to positive 10. You can try attempting this example 4 because we have already done 3 questions and it is quite similar to example 3 that we have done. So pause the video and try attempting it solving by yourself. Alright, so I can apply the difference of a square factorization method. So it is x minus 7 times x plus 7, and let's equate it to 0. So that will give me x is either equal to negative 7 or x is equal to positive 7. The coefficient of x square is positive, so I will have a concave parabola, happy face, and the x-intercepts are negative 7 and positive 7. I want my values or y values which are greater than 0. I want the y values which are above the x-axis. Above the x-axis means that we have to go in this region or in this region. Now let's see. It means that either my x is less than negative 7. See, look at this. It only says greater than. So I am only using this symbol. I am not equating it to the endpoints. Or x is greater than 7. Now I will write them together. So x is an element of negative infinity to negative 7, and I don't want to include the endpoint, so I will use the small bracket union 7 to positive infinity. Never include infinity in your uh, sets because infinity can't be included. It is just an idea, it's not a number. So let's go ahead and try using the absolute value function method on the same question. All right, you can try attempting it using the absolute value function. Pause the video and try attempting it. Okay, I believe you have tried it. So let's try doing it together. So I have x square is greater than 49. I will take a square root of both sides. So a square root of x square is greater than a square root of 49. And a square root of x square is modulus of x has to be greater than 7. So let's plot it on the x-axis 0. There are 2 points for which the distance can be equal to 7, which are positive 7 and negative 7, and we want this distance to be greater than 7. So it means we want my x to be more than 7, or we want our x to be less than negative 7. Hence, my answer is x is either less than 7 or x is greater than 7. So x is an element of negative infinity to negative 7 union 7 to infinity. Now the idea remains the same. In example 5, I have taken a quadratic which is not very easy to factorize because our a is not 1, it is 6. So step number 1 is going to be we have to solve this quadratic. You can use factorization method, you can use quadratic formula, you can use completing the square, and all those three methods have been discussed in this playlist, so do watch them. Let's start. So I have got 6x square. I'm going to first equate it to 0. So 6x square plus 11x minus 10 is equal to 0. Then 6 times 10 is negative 60. So it means I can take 6x square plus 15x, negative 4x, negative 10 is equal to 0. Pair them up. And from here I can take 3x out, so I will have 2x plus 5, and from here I can take negative 2 out, so I will have 2x plus 5. As soon as you get the same number over here, you can combine them and write them as factors. So 3x minus 2 times 2x plus 5 is equal to 0. That means product of two number is equal to 0. That means either x is equal to 2 over 3 or x is equal to negative 5 over 2. Now look at the coefficient of x square, which is positive 6. It means we will have happy face or concave up, and the x-intercepts that we have got are negative 5 over 2 and 2 over 3. What we want our x to be less than 0. Less than 0 means we want it to be below the x-axis. So below the x-axis is this region. We want So it means my x is greater than negative 5 by 2 but less than 2 over 3. And I can also write it as x is an element of negative 5 by 2 comma 2 over 3. I don't want to include the endpoint, so I will use the small bracket. Now let's go for our last example of today. Try doing this by yourself. You can pause the video and try attempting this question by yourself. All right, so I assume you have tried it. So let's start the discussion. So here I will first try to simplify it. I have got two negative 10 and positive 10. It means I can divide this entire equation or inequality. I can divide both the sides by 2, which will give me, if I can rewrite it as x square negative 5x plus 5 is less than 0. And if I divide both sides by 2, I will have x square negative 5x plus 5 is less than 0. So the next step is that I want to find the x-intercepts. I want to solve this quadratic. I want to find where x square minus 5x plus 5 is equal to 0. Now in this case, I'm not able to think of any factors, so I will use quadratic formula. So imagine if I had x square minus 5x plus 5 equal to 0, how I can solve it using quadratic formula. For more details, you can watch the videos over here. Let's see, I'm just going to use the quadratic formula. So the two roots x1, x2 are going to be negative of b plus minus root under b square, which is 25, minus 4ac. So a is 1 and c is 5 over twice of a, so 2. I will have 5 plus minus root under 25 minus 20 over 2, which will give me 5 plus minus root under 5 over 2. Let's simplify it. So it implies that x1 or x2 are equal to x1, x2 equal to. That means my x1 is going to be equal to 5 minus root 5 divided by 2, which would be approximately equal to 1.38, and my x2 gonna be 5 plus root 5 divided by 2. You can use your calculator and you will get 3.62 approximately. These are the two answers. Now let's plot it. We have got the coefficient of x square is positive, means happy face or concave up, and the x-intercepts are 1.38 and 3.62, and I want it to be less than 0. Less than 0 means I want it to be in this region. So x is greater than 1.38 or less than 3.62, or x is an element of 1.38 comma 3.62. I don't want to include them since the inequality doesn't include 0, so I will just write the small bracket. And that's how, folks, you do quadratic inequalities. If this video has helped you, share it with others, like it, put some comments. Please put some suggestions. If you have any questions, any doubt, any suggestions for future videos, please write them in the comment, and I'm happy to help you. Thank you for watching.